We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Chaf Aleph Amid Beis in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 121b. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says it's even possible when someone falls into a pit filled with snakes and scorpions, he might survive. Why? Shema Chavar, who maybe he's somebody who's a charmer. Rashi says Yodea Lilcho, she knows how to charm the snakes and scorpions, and that's how he might survive. But the Gemara continues with Tanakama. The Tanakama responds to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that's not true. Agav Itzitza Maskile, because he falls on them and that causes a pressure, so therefore it really is impossible, even in that case, to survive. Rashi over here says, Agav Itzitza Shadochkan Kishaomid Aleim. Again, he's pushing against them when he stands on them, and therefore he will not survive. And Rashi notes, Aval Gova Rayos Rochav, when it comes to a situation of a lion's den, it's a little wider, it's bigger. Vein Omid Alein, he doesn't stand over them. Upamim Sheinam Re'evim, sometimes they're not famished. Vein Ochlan Oso, so they're not going to eat him. That's why it's possible to survive in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Nafal Esoch Kivshan Ha'esh, let's say a person falls into a furnace, Me'idin Olav, then you can already testify about him, he certainly has died. Liyora Meleya Yayin V'Shemen, let's say it's a cauldron, it's a hot cauldron filled with wine and oil, or oil, Me'idin Olav, also there, one can testify that he has certainly died. Mishum Rabbi Yacha Amru, in the name of Rabbi Yacha, they said, Shel Shemen, if it's filled with oil, Me'idin Olav, then you can testify about him that he certainly died. Mimnei Shum Maver, because that actually causes the fire to burn more, it ignites. But Shel Yayin, but if it has wine, Ein Me'idin Olav, you can't testify on him. Mimnei Shum Mechav, because wine could actually put out the fire. Amrulo, they said to him, no, Tchilasu Mechav, at the beginning maybe it would put out the fire. Besofo Maver, but in the end, the wine will also ignite. And Rashi over here explains, Shehu Maver Kishenafal Adam L'Socho, when the person falls into the cauldron, Vinitas Hashemen Ala Or, and then the oil spills out over onto the fire, on the flame, Umaviro Yoser, it actually makes it burn more. Yoser v'yoser, v'lo shavser esichas hayorav, it's some kuragla, v'lo yachol, latzes v'meis, it's not going to get any cooler, and therefore his feet are going to be injured, he's not going to be able to get out. But the other thing, the wine, is going to actually put out the fire. Kishanitas al or kibeyo, again, it's going to put out the fire when it actually falls on the fire. Now, even though he might not be able to get out, he won't die. It's going to cool off. The fire is going out, it's cooling off, he'll be able to survive. But then the response was Vesofo Mavir, in the end it will ignite. It happens even if it goes out, it's going to reignite itself even more than it was originally, and therefore again, even in this situation, he's going to die according to that point of view. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, quoting the Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Meir says, there was a story where somebody fell into a great cistern of water and actually emerged and survived after 3 days. And the Gemara says, Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Amru Lola Rabbi Meir, they said to Rabbi Meir, Ein Mazkir and Maisa Nisim. You can't bring a proof from something that is clearly a miracle. Rashi over here says, Maisa Nisim, Afilo Eino Meis Machmas Hamayim, Hayolo Lamas Machmas Davar Acher. After 3 days, even if he didn't die from the water, he should have died from something else. My Maisa Nisim. So that's what the Gemara says. What do you mean it's a nace? If you're going to say it's because he didn't eat and drink for those days. But doesn't the Pasuk say, Vitsumo Alai Ve'al Tochlu Ve'al Tishtu? It says, fast for me and don't eat and don't drink, and that's exactly talking about the same thing. This is in Megillas Esther. She says don't eat and drink for 3 days, Laila v'yom. So you see, it is possible to survive. Ela delo nayim. So rather, what's the miracle over here is that he didn't fall asleep. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan says Shavua shelo ishan shlosha yamim. If a person takes an oath that I won't sleep for 3 days, malkin so we give him lashes. V'yashiv v'yishan lialter, he should go to sleep immediately, meaning it's something that's impossible. And so the Gemara continues with Rabbi Meir my time. So now, according to Rabbi Meir, if this is true, if there is a miracle over here, so why does he think it is a proof? Gemara says Amar Rav Kahana says Keepin al gav keepin have. There were arches built upon arches in this cistern, and he was able to go on those, and he was able to sleep. Rashi over here says, Keepin al gave, keepin kamin binyonim v'ulamos, v'nishan aleim v'yashin. He was able to lean upon them, and he was able to sleep in that fashion. V'Rabbanan, and what did the Rabbanan respond to that? No, that wouldn't have helped either. Deshisha have, they were actually made out of marble, as Rashi says, v'chalokin u'me'umed ein adam yashin. They were too smooth, and standing up a person can't sleep, so it actually wasn't possible. There was a miracle over here. Rabbi Meir will respond to the Rabbanan, yafshar delo masrich v'nayim pursa. As Rashi over here says, masrich mischazik v'nidvek alein mad. He can get a little bit of strength and lean on them a little bit, and he'll be able to sleep a little bit. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Ma'isa bebito shel Nechunya chofer shichin. There was a story with the daughter of Nechunya, and he used to dig the water channels. Shenafla labor hagadol, she fell into this great cistern. Uvo vahudiu la Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and they came and they told Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa what happened. Shari Shona, the first hour, Amar Lehem, he said to them, Shalom, it's peaceful, don't worry about her. Shniya, in the second hour, Amar Lehem, he said, Shalom, it's peaceful, don't worry. Shlishas, by the third hour, Amar Lehem, he said to them, also she's already come up. Amar Lo, he said to her, Biti, my daughter, Mihelach, who brought you up, how'd you escape? Amar Lo, she said to him, Zocher shel Rechelim, Nizdamin li v'zokin manhigo, there was a male sheep, a ram that appeared to me, and there was an elder that was guiding it. Rashi over here says, Shel Rechelim ze'elo shel Yitzchak, this is a reference to the ram of Yitzchak. Amru Lo, so they said to him, Naviata, they said, are you a Navi? How did you know? This is, they're talking to Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, how did you know that she didn't die? Amar Lam, he said to them, Lo Navi anochi v'lo ben Navi anochi, I'm not a prophet and I'm not the son of a prophet. Elo dover sha'at tzadik misasik bo, but you think something that the tzaddik himself is dealing with. In other words, this was Nechunya chofer shichin, he's the one that dug the water channels. Yikashel bozara, you think that his children would stumble, you think they would die in this manner, that's how I knew that she would survive. But the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Abba says, Afal pichein, nevertheless, Meis beno batzama, still, the son of Nechunya chofer shichin, of Nechunya who dug these wells, his son still ended up dying in thirst. That didn't protect his son from dying, even though that also involves something to do with water. It involved thirst, a lack of water. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Usvivav nisara ma'od, around him there's great storms. Malamed sha'kadosh baruch hu medaktek im savivav. What that pasuk teaches us is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very exacting with those that are around him. Kechut hasara, from the word nisara, kechut hasara, like a hair's breadth. So in other words, every little thing that is done is judged, and therefore this punishment ended up befalling Nechunya chofer shichin, even though he was a great person. Rabbi Chanina Amar Mehacha, Rabbi Chanina says from here, from the following pasuk, Kel narotz besod kedoshim rabba v'nora kol savivav. There's fear, there's awesomeness on all that surround him. Again, meaning those that are close to him are judged at a more strict level. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Afilu shama min hanoshim, even if somebody hears from the women that they're saying, Omros Mesish Ploni, that they say so-and-so died, Dayo, that is sufficient in order to determine that the person has actually died. Rashi says, Afilu shama min hanoshim shelo hayu miskavnos lohoid. The point is, they're not trying to testify. Umasichos lifituman, this is just part of their conversation. Dayo, that is sufficient. V'yachol leilech u'lahoid u'lhasis ishto. That person can go testify, and that person, they can marry off his wife. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Afilu shama min hatinoko somrim. Even if you hear the children saying, Hareyano holchin lisbod v'likvar sishploni, we're going to eulogize and bury so-and-so, that's going to be sufficient. Bein shu meskavin uvein she'enu meskavin. And this is true whether the person has intention, as Rashi says, la'edus, whether the person is intending to testify, not intending to testify, either way, it's going to be sufficient. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava Omer, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says, Be Yisrael, when it comes to a Jew, afal pishu meskavin, even though he is intending to testify, uvyovid kochavim, when it comes to an idol worshiper, im hayem meskavin, if he's intending to testify, ein eduso edus, then that testimony is actually not going to be accepted. And the Gemara says, V'dil malo azli, if a person hears that the children are saying, we are going to eulogize so-and-so, we're going to bury so-and-so, maybe they won't end up going, maybe they think that he is going to die, and they're really not going to end up going, so what's the proof? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Teko Amri, because what they're really saying is as follows, Hareinu boin milispod, umi likvor esish ploni, we're coming from eulogizing and from burying so-and-so, and that already is going to be evidence. But the Gemara says, V'dil makamtza bi'al mashachivle, maybe the situation was that just some grasshopper died, v'asiku le'al shemei, and they were calling it by this guy's name, so again, what's the evidence from children? And the Gemara answers, the kamri chein v'chein rabbonin have a hasam, no, because they're saying details, such and such sages were there, kein v'chein safdoni have a hasam, such and such eulogizers were there, and that's already going to be evidence that the person indeed died. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, the Mishnah said at the end, Uviovid kochavim im hayem eskavin v'chulu, when it comes to an idol worshiper, if he's intending his words as a form of testimony that the person died, then we do not accept his words. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Lo shanu elosh and eskavin lahatir. This is only true if his intention was to matir the woman to a allow her to remarry. Avol niskavin lohoid, but if he's just intending to testify, but not thinking about the fact that the wife is going to remarry, eduso edus, then his testimony is actually accepted. And the Gemara says, Heichi Yadina. The Gemara says, well, how do we know what his intention is? Amar Rav Yosef says, Boled Bezin, if he comes to court, v'yomer, and he says, Ish ploni meis hesiu es ishto, he says, so-and-so died, let his wife remarry, zeu niskavin lahatir. That's a clear case where his intention is to matir her. Meis stam, but if he just comes and he says that the person died, zeu niskavin lahoy, that's le'edus. That's just considered he's having intention for testimony, but not necessarily to matir the wife. And the Gemara continues, Itmar Nami, it was taught as well. Amar Reish Lakish says, Lo shanu ela sheniskavin lahatir. This is only true that we don't accept it if his intention is to allow the woman to remarry. Avol niskavin lahoy they do so edus. But if his intention is just to testify, then his testimony is accepted. But the Gemara continues, Amar le Rabbi Yochanan said back to Reish Lakish, Lo kacho yamaisa ba'ushia berebi. Wasn't there a story with the great Rabbi Ushia shehitirim im shmonim v'chamisha zakenim that he allowed it, and there were 85 elders there. Amar lahem, and he said to them, Lo shanu ela sheniskavin lahatir, avol niskavin lahoy do so edus. He said this is only true when the non-Jew is intending to matir the woman, but if he's just intending to testify, we should be able to accept his testimony. V'lo odu lo chachamim, the chachamim did not agree to that. So you see that we don't accept the testimony of the Gentile, regardless of what his intention is. Even if his intention was just for testimony, that would be no good. And the Gemara continues, if that's the case, elamasnisin de gatani, but then our Mishnah which says, it says if the idol worshiper had intention, then it's not good testimony, implying there is a situation where it would be good testimony where there's no intention. So what is that scenario where there's no intention? And so Rabbi Yochanan would say, very simple. If you hear the idol worshiper just in the course of conversation saying that the person died, then you could accept that as testimony. But otherwise, in any situation where there's any intention for some kind of testimony, we would not accept the words of the Ovid Kochavim. And the Gemara continues, Ki ahu dahave koamar v'yazul. It was like the story, there was a certain Gentile who was going around and saying, Man ika bechivoy, man ika bechivoy, who's around here from the house of Chivoy, Shochiv Chivoy, that Chivoy has died, v'yansav Rav Yosef l'devisu, and Rav Yosef allowed his wife to marry on the basis of the fact that this Gentile was talking in the course of conversation. And the similar story the Gemara has, Ahu dahave kamar v'azul vaylo lefarsha zriza dahave b'pumbedisa. Woe is to the great horseman of Pumbedisa, the Shachiv, for he has died. V'yansav Rav Yosef, and again Rav Yosef allowed, v'yitei Rava, and some people say it was Rava that allowed, l'devisu, he allowed his wife to remarry. And the Gemara continues with a similar story, Ahu dahave kamar v'azul, there was a guy going around and saying, Manika bechasa, who is here from the house of Chasa, Tava Chasa, Chasa has drowned. Amr Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman said, Ho Elokim, by God, Ochlu Kavari l'Chasa, the fish have eaten Chasa. Midibure de Rav Nachman, Ozla devisu de Chasa v'insavan. From hearing the words of Rav Nachman, the wife of Chasa went and she got married. V'lo amru la v'lo midi, and nobody said anything to her, they didn't stop her. Amr Rav Ashi said, Shema Mino, you see from this, Hada Amr Rabbanan, that which the Rabbanan said, Mayim she'in lahem sof ishto asura, that in a case of water where there's no end, his wife is prohibited, Hanimili lechatchila, that's only lechatchila that she shouldn't get married. Avali nasiv lo mafkin lamine, but if she does get married, we don't force her to divorce. That's exactly what happened in this case. Incorrectly, she understood from Rav Nachman's words that she was allowed to get married when she was not, but once she already did get married, we will not force her to divorce. Ika diamri, there are those who have the following version, Ansava Rav Nachman l'devisu, that actually Rav Nachman did issue a ruling that this wife was allowed to remarry. What was that based on? Amar, because Rav Nachman said, Chasa gavra rabba isei. Chasa was actually a great person. Imisa de Salak, if it was true that he came up on the shore somewhere, Kala islay the mil, so the rumor would have gone around, we would know that he was alive, and therefore Rav Nachman actually allowed her to remarry based on that heter. But the Gemara says, Veloi, but that's not true. Loshna gavra rabba, it doesn't matter if it's a great man. Loshna lav gavra rabba, it doesn't matter if it's not a great man. The evidin lechatchila lo. If after the fact she gets married, we're not going to force her to divorce, but lechatchila, she should not get married. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Hahu ovid kochavim davik ka'amar leili Yisrael. There was a case of an idol worshiper who said to a Jew, Ketol aspasta v'shadi lechivoy v'shabsa. Cut some of the animal food from the ground and feed it to my animals on Shabbos. Below, and if you don't do that, katilna lach, I'm going to kill you. Katilna leploni bar Yisrael, like I killed so and so the Jew. The Amri that I said to him, Bashali kadeira b'Shabbos, cook for me a pot on Shabbos. V'lo bashali, and he did not cook it for me. V'katil, and so I killed him. So Shama Devisa, so the wife of this individual heard, and so now she thought maybe she could be allowed to marry because it's clear that her husband had died. V'asoi l'kamei de Abaya, she came in front of Abaya, Shahisa, so he delayed ruling on this issue, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Chaf Beis Amud Aleph.